watching you as a child do a lot of everything I did,
Mm.
I didn't know what I know now, and I thought everything you did was normal because it was a reflection of me,
Yeah.
just like me.
Like mother, like daughter.
Exactly. And I thought, oh, she's just like me. That's fine. She's going to do well.
I love that. I love that so much. Welcome to Princess and the Pea podcast, a show by neurodivergent women for neurodivergent women. I'm your host, Annie Crow, and I'm an autistic ADHDer who likes to talk a lot about neurodiversity. I started this podcast so that I could share meaningful conversations that explore the lives of autistic and ADHD people like myself. We talk about everything from employment to healthcare, education, parenting, relationships and more, but all in a neuro-spicy light. Before we kick off, I just wanted to add a quick content warning for little ears. This podcast will be discussing mental health issues and serious adult business, so chuck on your headphones and grab a cup of tea. And as Bluey likes to say, let's do this. Today's guest is very special to me. It's her first ever podcast appearance. Meet my wonderful mama bear, Narelle.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the microphone. Thanks for agreeing to come on and get personal with me.
It's an absolute pleasure.
My mum also realised she was autistic and ADHD in her 50s after I was diagnosed in my late 20s, which isn't uncommon for women these days, not only being diagnosed much later in life, but also after their own children receive a diagnosis. Obviously, even though we both found out about our neurodivergent brains later in life, we've still been neurodivergent our entire lives. My queen peas have voted, and the winning theme for today was talking about our traits we now recognise as autistic and ADHD. If you want to have a say in what we talk about on the show, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at princessandthepea.pod. And if you're a neurodivergent human, join our Facebook group to connect with some awesome fellow autistic ADHD neurospicy friends at Princess and the Pea podcast community. Talking about which of our traits are autistic and ADHD could take a few weeks, so we're going to break it down. In today's episode, we go through an online ADHD quiz and share how we relate to the questions. If you're a fan of our chat, then we might convince Mum to come back on and go through some autism questions too. We hope you like this authentic and raw chat between mother and daughter. Remember that we're just two neurodivergent women and this is our lived experience. And just because we have certain traits and characteristics does not mean that all autistic ADHDers do too. Also, we are both still figuring out the lingo, and it's hard when we look at online diagnostic tests when we jump straight back into that pathologizing language that plagues the medical model of disability. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google the social model of disability and the neurodiversity paradigm. If you can forgive any less than ideal language use, we'd really appreciate it. We are still dismantling our own internalized ableism that formed over decades before we were enlightened of our own neurodivergence. It's a process. So today went a little bit longer than expected because that's what happens when you get two ADHDers chatting away. We took a lot of tangents, but I think most of them are pretty relevant, so I hope you enjoy and welcome Mum. So let's start with ADHD. And the reason I think that this is going to be good is because I think there's a lot of content specifically about autism or ADHD in women, but there's not a lot out there that talks about people like my mum and I who are both. And having both means that a lot of the traits can counteract each other or overlap or amplify. But we're going to start with ADHD and just know that there is some overlap in symptoms, especially in the executive functioning area, but we'll see how we go. Here we go. So the first one we're going to go through is from attitude.com, and it's a test specifically for females with ADHD. So the first question is, do you feel like you're always at one end of a deregulated activity spectrum, either a couch potato or a tornado? And the answers are very often, sometimes, rarely, and never. Well, I guess what do you feel like, Mum?
I feel like I'm an all or nothing person and I go, and then I'm exhausted and I need to be a couch potato for a little while to recover.
Yeah. And you hit a breaking point and you've got to recover and then you're back to speed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a bit the same. I definitely am dysregulated in I don't think I'm quite as bad as you at the go, 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 but maybe that's because you've got like a couple decades of being a mum on me.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I definitely also am either just hectic or can't get off the couch.
Yeah.
The next question is, it's impossible for you to shut out sounds and distractions that don't bother others.
Exactly. Absolutely impossible. And I find it overload of noise. And I have to be able to cut out all the noise around me to focus solely on something important. And it's just all too much sometimes, overstimulating.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm exactly the same. And I find both of us, I think, find when we go out in public and with friends and such, it's really hard to listen to conversations with all the background noise.
It sure is. And especially if you're listening to somebody and there's music or other conversations right near you, very hard to focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, recently I had a PCR test and I'm negative, all good.
Oh, good.
But the lady who was taking my details had a mask on. And something that I've noticed in COVID, and I'd be interested to hear if you've had this, Mum, is I rely heavily on lip reading because when I'm talking to people and there's a lot of background noise, it's really hard for me to hear what they're saying.
Absolutely. Even though we have excellent hearing,
Yeah.
if I can't see their lips, I really struggle.
Same.
Which is hard because I, work in the medical field, so we've often got masks on.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're orientating to a new job and you cannot concentrate because their masks the barrier.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had to ask her to repeat herself like 5 times, and I felt so bad about it because I couldn't understand purely because the mask was in the way, and not only was I not able to read her lips, but it was muffling the words she said.
That's same with me entirely, and especially when it's so important for you to follow their instructions. When you're really concentrated, it's such a barrier, and it's been tough a lot over the last 2 years with that happening.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I like that point you just brought up because I find when I'm more heightened in anxiety, I find it even harder. It's like my brain stops being quite as switched on. So I think I'm even more nervous about not listening, and then it makes it harder.
Exactly. It's like you're over concentrating and it's all a bit much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think in saying this, there's a few things that could be happening here for those who are newly listening. Is it could be a mixture of some auditory processing issues, because I'm pretty sure I have that, but it hasn't been formally diagnosed for me. And also, like, there's the distractibility element, which is probably more the ADHD. And then there's also the sensory element of if there's loud noises in the background, your ears can focus in on them over the quieter ones that might be right near you that you're trying to listen to. So there's a few elements that could be at play. All of them, one of them, who knows? But I find that interesting when I looked into this stuff more to know that there is a few differences.
Absolutely.
So, does time, money, paper, or stuff dominate your life and hamper your ability to achieve your goals?
All of the above.
Yes, agreed. Very often.
Yes, very often for sure.
Yeah, you and I are excellent at avoiding paperwork and life admin.
Absolutely. I detest it. And yet I had to do it so much over the years in, management roles.
Yes.
But yet you were forced yourself to do what you had to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another thing that's really interesting about this stuff is that it's not that we can't do it. It's just that we really, really don't want to, and forcing ourselves to do it is either sometimes impossible, depending on a lot of factors, or it just drains us very rapidly of energy, right?
I had to often negotiate with myself and have a reward system set up. So, right, I'm going to get this done in an hour, especially with university assignments, and then I'm going to reward myself and have a good break. And I had to do negotiation and persuade myself to do the admin.
Yeah, or another trick I like to use sometimes is putting on a timer and using that to like rush through the stuff that I really don't want to do, which sometimes can help give me a bit of a dopamine kick. Doesn't always work.
Same with me. That's what I've had to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of different techniques out there, and I think it's about finding what does work for you and having options on hand.
And I always thought I used to procrastinate for university assignments to meet deadlines, but
Mm.
I think it was my executive function and not coping with the admin role, because I love the practical stuff. I hate the written admin, structured, having to get an assignment in on time.
Yeah, I've heard it described as like a few different ways, but there's like the wall of awful, or anytime you see something that's going to require a huge mental effort, our brains can naturally just really, really want to avoid it. And on top of that, we really need the dopamine spike of that time pressure or something kicking us up the butt. So I'm the same. And all through my studies, I did all my assignments within 24 hours of them being due.
And that's the same with me. I'm a
Yeah,
really naughty last minute person, but then in that
naughty. You're not
limited
naughty.
but in that limited time, the deadline at the last minute, I'd produce my most brilliant stuff. But I think it put the family through a lot of stress.
Yeah,
I was under the pump.
yeah, I can attest to that both as the one doing it and as the family member experiencing it. And it's hard because you can't always control what's going to happen. And sometimes, you know, if you're doing it last minute, a lot of places, a lot of universities and such won't give you an extension because they're like, you should have asked earlier. But if you're sick at the last minute, you can't control that. And then we blame ourselves, don't we? Like, oh, you should have started it weeks ago. And then it wouldn't be a
Exactly,
problem.
exactly. But life sometimes gets in the way for
Mm,
unknown reasons. But it was the only way I could really force myself to do
same.
that very taxing, heavy brain work.
And yeah, we obviously did all these studies before we were both diagnosed. And I think it's important to mention that because we didn't really understand why we did this stuff, for me personally, and I don't know if you were the same, Mum, it reinforced quite a harsh inner critic of blaming myself for, you know, if I did need an extension or if I couldn't get it done on time, or I'd even be going to classes or talking to friends and they'd all have finished their assignments a week before they were due. And I just felt so shameful about the fact that I couldn't even read the question. I was just not interested in touching it until within 24, 48 hours of it being due. So I think understanding our diagnosis has really helped us reframe how we see a lot of the things that we've done in life. You know, I think a lot of the traits of our ADHD and our autism have been interpreted by the world and by us in very ableist views around you're lazy, you don't try hard enough, you're not organized, you're undisciplined, you're sensitive. All these labels are so ableist. And if you hear them enough in your life, you're going to start saying them to yourself, right? You know, I think it's by the age of something like 7, our inner voices are very much a product of our environment. And if you've had school teachers and family and friends constantly sending you these messages,
Mm.
then it totally makes sense why a lot of us struggle with mental health and not so nice inner critics.
And that's right. And that's right. And even from the teachers, like, she's very bright, but doesn't put the effort in. But sometimes you have to compartmentalize it and put the effort in, maximum concentration in smaller periods of time to do well. You can't just I couldn't work on any assignment or assessment piece at high school for a week and a half because I'd get to the end early and then self doubt creeps in and I'd change
Yeah.
my whole topic to going off track, and then I wouldn't get the results I needed because I'd questioned it too much.
Mm.
But a late diagnosis has given me more self-compassion and self-understanding, and realizing, well, that's why I am like I am, and it's given me so much more happiness and self-acceptance.
Oh, you put that so beautifully. That's so accurate. And I'm the same. If there was ever a time that I did do it early, I would absolutely spend the entire time of me having finished the assignment to it being due, completely questioning everything I've done and being full of anxiety and stress rather than just waiting, smashing it out, knowing that you've done a good enough job, putting it in, and then being done with it. And similarly, I don't know if you were like this, Mum, but I really hated reading any sort of feedback from assignments or exams. You know, you'd get your test results back and everyone would go through their paper and see what they did good and what they did bad and learn from their mistakes. I could not even open the assignment.
And I was the same. I would never, ever do that in front of
Yeah.
people. It had to be in a private spot where I had to talk to myself and was ready for whatever the feedback.
Yes.
But it was often pleasantly surprised, and I always, even at primary and high school, did much better than I thought. But that self-criticism and self-doubt was so, you were so aware of it there that it was crippling sometimes
Yeah,
until you
absolutely.
got the results. But I didn't like anybody to see what comments were made because I took them so personally.
Yes, and I think that brings up rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is so common in ADHD. And for me, I wasn't pleasantly surprised. I was always just so critical. You know, I could get 99% on an exam, and I would just hone in on that one question I got wrong and how stupid I was for getting it wrong.
And I'd argue with the teachers about what they told me was wrong and get them to spell it all out and why it was wrong. So go into a debate. But also, I think that also led to a bit of perfectionism for me, even at primary school, where I was so hard on myself. My writing had to be perfect. I had to always try and very competitive in the spelling bees, really hard on yourself. And it must be exhausting as a child. I mean, I've blocked a lot of it out at my age, but again, watching you as a child do a lot of everything I did, I didn't know what I know now, and I thought everything you did was normal because it was a reflection of me, just like me.
Like mother, like daughter.
Exactly. And I thought, oh, she's just like me. That's fine. She's going to do well.
I love that. I love that so much. And also, I mean, I like that attitude as well, because I think if I wasn't like you might have questioned all of these differences more, and potentially, I don't know whether you would have tried to change them or get me help or whatever you would have done. But one thing I do look back on, and I guess the only thing that doesn't make me so sad about how late we were diagnosed, was the fact that you kind of got me because I was like you already, and you just let me be myself. And I love that, because I think without that, I truly think I would have such worse health outcomes. And
I tried to protect you emotionally because it was such a rocky, and the teenage years, the high school years, is such an emotional roller coaster, especially the last years of high school. But just to try and get you help to protect you so that I could ease the stress a little bit. But I knew you had such gifts and unlimited potential. I wanted you to keep believing in that. So I didn't want to, in a way, and I didn't know what I know now about seeking help and having you assessed or anything at high school. I just helped you try and get through the toughest periods.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I think is also important is that, I didn't struggle that much. Like I did well in school, and I was never a problem student besides the odd comments about being distracted or talking too much. And so, it's not like anyone raised flags to you about needing me to get assessed or help. And yet at the same time, as you know, I struggled so much emotionally and socially. And most of that was behind closed doors when I was at home and safe. And I would put on my mask when I went to school and act as if everything was fine and I knew what I was doing. And I think that's why I find the work that I do and that a lot of advocates do so important, because I don't think it I truly believe that one of the big reasons why women aren't diagnosed when they're younger is because unless we are so severe in our presentation, usually with comorbidities, that it's affecting other people, like our teachers or the students, then people just don't think to look into any of this stuff. And yet you and I had constant little daily battles all through our childhood, and it's cumulative. They add up, and you just constantly trying to keep on top of things and trying to fix everything that you're bad at, whether it's being late or talking too much or interrupting people when they speak, and things that you slowly get a little smack on the hand for every time you do it.
Which chips away at your self-confidence and your own self-esteem. And you can't help you are, but emotionally and socially, that's where I think the support is needed the most, because girls especially can be little chameleons and they can blend in and they can mask at school
Yeah.
and they can suppress all of this, and then boom, it blows up when you get home and you wonder why the siblings are having these massive
Yeah.
fights at home and they're having a meltdown. And I know a lot of young mums I work with that children are actually diagnosed on the autism spectrum and ADHD, and they see their behaviour, they're totally different at school than they are at home. And at home is where the behaviour is really hard for them to take, and they often have meltdowns because
Yeah.
they've coped so long, so many hours, 5 hours a day at school, and then they can't cope anymore and they let their guard down and they're exhausted.
Yeah, and it's good that I think nowadays that's being acknowledged a bit more. But I did hear that a while ago, not even that long ago, parents would often be dismissed and ignored because teachers and anyone outside the home would say, "There's nothing wrong with your child," that, like, almost gaslighting them, right? Like, there's something wrong with you.
Exactly, because your child's
Yeah.
perfect at school. We don't see any
It must be a
problems.
home problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. The truth is, this is backed up by a lot of neurodivergent folk, is that you feel safest at home. And that's when you let your guard down and the mask come off. And I think, to be honest, it's a good thing that you do have that at home, because it means that you do feel safe. So I could say, I knew you and Dad loved me and you would always accept me. And I think that one of the reasons why I had such a hard time when I was at home was because that was the only time I could let out all my frustrations. And I knew that, you know, even if maybe you didn't quite know how to handle it back then, like we do more now, I still knew that you'd be there for me and you'd love me and not abandon me.
It's hard as a parent because you want to give unconditional love and let your child to totally lay it all out at home and be themselves, but it can be exhausting as a parent too, because I used to say to Annie, "Oh, you take it out on the ones you love the most, so you must
Yes.
really, really love me a lot today. Today you
You
love me."
did. She still says that to
and
me.
and it would stop you in your tracks, and you think, "Oh, I'm really, giving mum a hard time. I better,
Yeah.
tell her how much I appreciate her and everything." But it
Yeah.
was as a parent too, it can be
Yeah.
very, very exhausting.
Yeah. And it's not like I ever intentionally was the way I was. It's not like I was trying to be a pain in your butt
Mm.
or trying to be a difficult emotional child. This was just how my difficulties express themselves.
And that was your coping mechanisms. Whereas me as a
Yeah.
child, because I had a younger sister that used to do the meltdown after school and that, so she sort of
Mm.
took precedence.
Yeah.
But I would just take my dog for a walk in the fresh air, or just go and play with the bush or over at the park or the sand pit, and just use the outdoors to self-regulate and calm down. And that was my outlet because I didn't get that emotional support.
That's a good point. Nature and movement can be really good emotional regulators if you can work up the energy to do them.
Yeah, and I had to though, even if it was sitting out in the front yard cuddling my big collie dog, which looked like Lassie, so
So
that was good.
cute. Yay, dogs. We love our dogs, don't we?
Yeah, my dog helped me cope with a lot of emotionals. I think it was almost he was a little assistance dog and he didn't know it, but he was brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So the next question is, do you start the day determined to get organized and end the day feeling defeated?
90% of the time.
Yeah, which is interesting you say that, because you're a very efficient woman. Like, you get so much done and yet you still feel that way, you know?
Yeah, I do, but I think I try and pack too much in my days,
Yeah.
and I don't self-regulate enough to take the right breaks, and I have unrealistic
Yeah, I was
expectations
going
of
to say,
myself to get more
yeah,
achieved.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I think you, similar to me, and I guess that's that perfectionism coming in, is that we expect to get this amount of stuff done, and then when we only get a third of it done or half of it done or even two-thirds of it done, we're disappointed in ourselves. And yet that's actually still a win, right?
It is, because even if on our list we got 50% done, that's much more than a lot of people get
Yeah.
done. But we don't look at it that way. We think, oh, too much to do, not enough hours. And I just feel like always that's the case.
Yeah.
Where I need to practice gratitude a little bit more and say, well, look, and some positive self talk. I have got all of these
Yeah.
achieved today. Be kind to
I think
yourself.
you do. It's funny, like, I mean, obviously we were diagnosed a few years ago now, but and we've both had some therapy, and therapy can be really helpful in identifying these things and working out ways to deal with them. But as much as I am a huge proponent of therapy and it's helped so much, it's still my automatic reaction to be critical and to be disappointed in myself. And a lot of the times, like, it really depends on, my state of mind and my environment and my energy levels and all these factors on if I'm going to buy into that rhetoric that's not really that accurate, or if I'm going to notice it and use my self compassion and my kind inner voice to say, well, hang on, you've actually got this, and this done, and that's really good. It's set you so much closer to whatever your goal is.
And that's how I've found therapy has really helped me. I'm a lot
Mm,
kinder to myself. I say, "Hey, you can't run around helping others unless your own glass is full. No, you can't be
yeah.
running on empty." And it's made me say, "Oh, you're doing a really good job. Be kind." Or, "Why are you
Yeah.
so stressed out? What's the worst thing that can happen? Don't be, just settle down." And it's helped my anxiety so much.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And me too. And it's almost like it's undoing the decades worth of negative self-talk that we have.
It has, it has. I've come a long way and I've gained so much, and
Mm,
especially a psychologist that you really, get on really well, and they bring the best out of you and you can talk through how you're feeling. It's made me a much calmer person, and more
mm,
I've gained and developed self-compassion and
mm.
yeah, and just realism. I think
Yeah.
it's good for our age. I'm much happier, and I accept things now and know to pick my battles and just let things go.
So good.
Because yeah, and I've come a long way, so it's the best thing I've done for myself.
Yeah. Do you remember before I was diagnosed and then you after me, I spent quite a few years in therapy, and the first couple of years I did CBT therapy, cognitive
Hmm.
behavior therapy. And do you remember how I was very frustrated when I was doing that therapy and it wasn't getting me very far?
Yeah, I do remember that period. And I thought, oh, is this the right thing that you're doing? I just,
Yeah.
as a mum, I thought, I hope this is of more benefit than harm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you and I, we both felt very lost because we didn't feel like we had any other options. We knew I needed therapy, and we
Mm.
didn't know that there were other options out there. So I
Mm.
just kept persevering.
And also finding the right person for you that you needed,
Yes.
plus looking at the different methods. Now there's much more available, and
Yeah.
everybody's got the unique individual history, like if you've got PTSD, what you need from that.
Yes. Trauma informed therapy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's come so far, even in the last couple of years, of what treatment methods they use and what's best for your needs and your personality.
Yeah, definitely. So true. And I mean, there's a lot of criticism within, I think, mostly the autistic community about CBT not being very effective for our neurodivergent brains. And I am in agreement of that, just experiencing myself that what CBT did for me was it made me so much more aware of my inner thoughts and my that inner critic voice without ever allowing me to fix it. And CBT is based on the premise of you hear your thoughts and you then choose to change them, and it was never a choice for me. I never felt like I had the power to change them. It just made me more frustrated with why I was even experiencing those thoughts and feelings.
It created an awareness, but it didn't give you the tools on to move further on than
Mm.
that and do something about them.
Exactly. And it
So
didn't focus
it's
enough on
limiting.
what I truly needed. That, this might not be for everyone, but for me and you, definitely we needed a more compassion, self-acceptance focused therapy, didn't we?
We did,
Yeah.
we did, and I've also tried EMDR,
Yeah,
and
same.
it's good. But in even working your way through traumas that have happened in your life, I still don't think it's, even when I go back to thinking or talking about that particular one, I still get very emotional. So
Yeah,
it was a long, long road, and I don't know whether that was the right thing for me. But I'm
absolutely.
still learning and working on it, and I know I've got a long way to go. But everything has helped because it's created self knowledge and self awareness of who I am and what I need to, to get better and heal and be, happier and less anxious person.
And just accept yourself and live a happy life, right?
Yeah, and let things go, and yeah, and know, well, your reaction for that trauma was very normal, and it
Yes.
still really affects you, and it's okay to
Oh,
feel that traumatized, it's
amen.
okay.
That's so true, Mum. I love that you said that, because another thing that I found is the couple of traumas I had, I felt like at the time that I had such an overreaction to them for what they were. And I think that that can be quite common for especially undiagnosed neurodivergent folk, because things that, we hold ourselves against a standard of what's defined as trauma and PTSD for neurotypicals. And,
Mhm.
I was in a car accident that, my car wasn't written off. I didn't have any immediate injuries that were very obvious. And yet it's one of the worst traumas I've ever experienced. And it took me years to even realize that I was traumatized by it.
And I don't think you realised at the time it was a high-speed crash, and you actually could have
Yeah, yeah, it
you
was.
could have died. It was such
True,
when you got
that's
a
true.
vehicle
Thank you,
doing
Mum.
80 and one hitting you doing 100, that's a combined
Yeah.
velocity of 180 kilometres an hour.
Yes, that is very true. That is
Yeah,
very
so
true.
that's
And
okay for you to have that response, but your injuries kept coming out,
true.
and you didn't realise that they were gonna affect you for the rest of your life and become chronic problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, I think it kind of aligns with that whole being critical of ourselves and not sort of ever feeling like we're having the right reaction. Because I remember I'd only just started therapy when my car accident happened, and I remember walking into my therapist office the next day and laughing at the story while I told her, as if it was like so silly.
It was like you were detached from it entirely and just
Yeah.
telling a surreal story that didn't happen to you.
Yeah, yeah, and she laughed back and we moved on, and that almost reinforced the fact that I shouldn't be upset about it.
Yeah, but you were so young,
Yeah.
it's just
I know. But for me, I did an EMDR too, and I didn't mind it, but I did have a few problems with it. I got very distracted easily with the hands back, the watching the finger go back and forward in front of your eye.
me too. That's I
Yeah,
can't take that. I just can't take
neither.
that at all. It's so distracting and stressful.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sensory overload
Yep,
visually.
it was, and I just couldn't take it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, they ask you questions while you're doing it, and it's just a lot. Like, I think it wasn't necessarily a bad therapy, but I don't think it quite suited our needs, did it, Mum?
Mm,
In saying that, for me, the best way that I've dealt with that trauma and other traumas has been with neurodiversity affirming
yep.
therapy. And that's with a therapist that mostly practices more of that act based compassion and acceptance therapy. And then equally, we'll just walk, for me, I think the biggest healing part of that for me was walking through the event and being validated in how I experienced it, because so much of our lives, we're not validated by our feelings or our interpretation of the world. We're told that it's wrong. And that's why we mask and camouflage, because if you get that message constantly, then all you do is look around and say, well, what are others doing and what's the normal way to respond? And you start denying your own experiences, and you sort of shut off to listening to yourself.
Yeah, but if you find the right therapist that is good with working with people that are diagnosed, that has been so much more validating for me going through things. And she taught me how to do self-compassion and self-acceptance so much better than any
Mm.
other psychologist.
Right? Because she fundamentally understands your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is so important. And I don't think you can remove our autistic and ADHD identity from any treatment, whether it's psychological or physical. That's why I rant about neurodiversity affirming healthcare, because I've experienced healthcare in all settings, and the best healthcare I've ever received and the best outcomes I've ever had have been neurodiversity affirming.
Mm.
And yet it's so hard to find that. And if you don't find it, it's very hard to know how to advocate for yourself and receive that from people, because you're constantly having to explain your needs and how you are the way you are to professionals that have no idea how to adapt their healthcare to suit that.
I almost think that I would prefer a neurodivergent person or allied
Mm.
health or health professional looking after me that has the same diagnosis, because they
Oh,
intrinsically
yes.
understand my needs, and they explain and they communicate
Mm-hmm.
and they have more compassion, and they know, what sort of things we become anxious about. And wouldn't it be good if
Yes.
you could sort of have a specialty area that looked after, that's what our needs are, our specific needs.
Yeah, no, I think it's the other way around. I think we just need more autistic ADHD humans in all different health professions, because it's not necessarily that they need to specialize. My absolute favorite therapists have been autistic.
Yeah.
My favorite psychologist and my favorite dietitian were neurodivergent, and I've just never had more effective and supportive and positive treatment.
That's the same with me. That's with all
Yeah.
allied health and that I've been through.
Yeah.
They get me. They understand. They can read your facial expressions and your needs, and I don't know, they just have a different way, probably more compassion, and they can feel your fear and anxiety, and they know how to address it.
I feel like they just inherently understand your brain, right? And it's almost like, and we are all different, but, it's that double empathy problem of it's so much easier to communicate from one neurodivergent to another than it is to communicate from one neurodivergent to a neurotypical person, because we just have different ways to communicate. And so I just find that it makes the therapy process, whatever therapy that is, it just makes the healthcare process so much more simple, so much more.
Like stress free and more streamlined and comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Next question is, do you watch others of equal intelligence and education pass you by? For me, I would say yes to that, and not in like an extreme way, but for instance, at high school, I got this award every year called the Pro Diligentia Award, which is also known as the Try Hard Award, because it means you're a diligent student, which I thought was the biggest joke, because I was not a diligent student and I did not try very hard because I couldn't. I wanted to. And so I was like, is this reverse psychology or something? And what it meant was that every single year I got to go to awards night, which was predominantly for the high achieving students that were getting cum laudes and all the straight A's. And I was just beneath them. And so it would just be a constant reinforcement that I know I was capable of getting those awards and those grades, but I also couldn't do the work to do it. So it wasn't that my intelligence was lacking. It was just that I couldn't focus and apply myself like I wanted to be able to meet that rigid schooling system requirements.
And I agree, because that's exactly what happened to me. I knew I had the ability, and I wanted to be a vet and work with animals, and
You did.
I knew I could get the results, but I was so frustrated because I didn't have the support and wasn't able to concentrate and put the effort in to get the marks that I needed to what I wanted to do. And I just think, how can others get there when I know I've got the ability, but what's the block? What's
Yeah.
wrong with me? And the self-doubt, the self-criticism, the nasty
Yep.
self-critical steps in then, inner voice. Yeah.
Nice and critical of us
You
constantly.
knew you had the ability to get results the same as them, but you
Mm-mm.
didn't understand why you weren't able to. But now that we know, and we look back in retrospect, we understand what makes us tick. That was never going to happen without the support we needed in the right environment.
I agree. I remember when I first started university, I went from doing all maths and sciences at school to flipping over into all law and sort of arts subjects and business. And that was just such a different approach to education and assessment, which was fine. I got used to that. But I remember in second semester, I did a business stats course, and I was so excited about it because I thought, I'm going to breeze through this. I did the top 2 maths at school without effort. Like, I love maths. I'm really good at numbers. And so I thought, this is just going to be a write-off and I can focus my efforts in other classes because I'll just do so well. And I failed that unit. It's the only unit I've ever failed out of, 5-year double degree. And the reason I failed was because I didn't apply myself, and the unit was broken down so that you had to do like mini tests every single week. And because I wasn't keeping on top of the curriculum, I was not doing well. And anyone who's done business stats will know it's not just that you have to be good at numbers, but you have to understand the formulas and how the questions are. Like, it wasn't really the same as a lot of the maths I'd done. If anything, I'd say it was simpler, but it was more, you had to really memorize the way that the statistics work.
And I felt so sad for you to see you fail and the devastation. And I thought, oh, I hope she doesn't drop out because of that. I couldn't believe it, because you normally love to, you're a good student, but that was devastating. The same with me. I hospital trained, did my nursing in a hospital, and then I went back to university to upgrade to a degree.
Yeah.
And silly me, nobody told me do an easy subject to start, like a second year subject. So I started with a hard third year subject, all about research, the terminology. And I really was about to fail. I had to really backpedal, because I thought I would enjoy and find university, challenging, but I'd pass. And I nearly failed my first subject, and I was terrified, because it was like learning a foreign language,
Oh my
research.
goodness. Yeah. And it feels like you've ruined everything. I thought, there goes my GPA and future job prospects.
Me too. That's the only time I've just scraped in a pass in 12 years of university.
Amazing. I had to actually repeat business stats, and I ended up topping it because I was so angry that I'd failed that I was like, I'll show you. And it wasn't hard. I just really had to put the effort in. Like, it wasn't intellectually challenging. It was just a lot of chores.
A lot of workload.
It was
constant concentration and workload.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas I preferred the subjects that had one mid-semester giant assignment or essay and then one big exam at the end, because then you just had to make 2 big rounds of effort rather than constantly keeping up with readings and tutorials and questions every bloody week.
That's what drove me crazy. But we have to keep plodding along to get the end result, don't we, to actually try and graduate.
Yeah. So next part, are you called a slob or spacey?
Oh, sometimes I'm called spacey. Are you? Like, where is your head? What are you concentrating? Are you listening to my question?
Yeah.
And it's, again, that all or nothing. So sometimes my desk is a pigsty, but I know where everything is, and I think I'm such a slob, but others think, oh, you're a really organised person. And then I have to have the massive clean out and feel lovely because it's all in order. And then a week later, it's a big mess again. And, so
Same.
I swing between cleanups, and sometimes it's a life of chaos, but I'm more at peace if it is organised, but it's going to be a lifetime effort and journey for me to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we're very similar in that, but I really struggle to put things away if I don't have a place for them, or if I find, and I wonder, have you always been like this, or is this something you've just sort of adapted over the years? Is you, when you clean up, you're really good at just putting everything away. It doesn't have to be perfect. Put it all away, make it neat.
I think I'm much worse as you progress through life, where you accumulate more stuff.
True.
It becomes a bit overwhelming. I was much better when we had very little, like newlyweds and a young parent with kids, and you didn't have a lot of stuff. And we moved quite frequently as a military family. And so I couldn't hoard things. I couldn't, keep the kids' clothes. A lot was given away. And I think it was easier for me. But now, I have a lot of hobbies and creative pursuits. And it's hard to
You're very
really
creative.
keep it all in order. Do you know what I mean? So it's accumulation of stuff. So it's my own fault. And
it's not your fault.
Okay, not my fault. It's my
There's that inner critic coming out.
It's my own journey of what's the best form of storage and organising. But I've learned a lot from you, Annie, because Annie's had an organiser. Her house is fantastic. Everything's labelled. And when I go there, I feel so empowered, and I know where to find everything. And I just love it.
Yeah, I clean up for mum's
visits.
And I
thought, maybe I need to do that too. But
I think everyone should have an organiser.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's so good. Although I still live in chaos, but it's less chaotic than it was before her.
Exactly. And in an emergency, you can go and get your hands on things when you need them. Or if, like me, comes in and cook for her and finds something in the kitchen, I can easily find stuff and help her clean up, because it's all got its own place.
Yeah, and it was a big thing for me was never working out where things should go. So, some of the advice that people give you on keeping an organized house and such is like, think of where would you look for it first? And every time I asked that question to myself, my thoughts would change. So it was never reliable
Yeah, yeah.
to know where I kept it until I got someone in to make very proper homes for everything that I had, which was a huge task, and decluttering and all of that. So many elements there.
And I wanted to put it out there for young mums as well. Like when you've got kids, it is a bit chaos because there's toys
It
scattered
is.
everywhere and all there's tools
Uh,
and that. But remember, at the end of the day or when they go to sleep, you can push it all into one area or one box. And, you
yeah.
know, not to worry about that. It's part of the life cycle. And then, you know, when your
Mm.
kids leave home, your house is a bit more organized because you haven't got their clutter everywhere as well. And
Until your grandson comes to visit.
yeah, except then, and your world's turned upside down. Or when your daughter moves out and she still leaves a room full of stuff at your
Oopsie.
place, and it takes a while to persuade her to take all the stuff.
And the other thing is with the mess, a lot of advice I see is, oh, you know, the mess is fine, just deal with it. Like, you don't have to have a perfectly put together place. And the reason that that doesn't make me feel at peace is that I mean, obviously I can live with the mess. I have to because I am a messy person and things are just constantly getting put out of whack, even when I try to be organized. But from a sensory perspective, it's very stressful to have toys everywhere or lots of piles of clean clothes that I haven't put away. It's that constant visual of your to-do list and that visual overwhelm of just too much clutter and too much stuff in your space that you don't feel calm and restful.
But it's hard to gather the energy as a young mum when you
It's so
often are
hard.
quite exhausted to find time to put those away. Like I
Yeah.
went through that too. I was so fatigued, and you know, just to try and be able to put things away. And all the mums I've known have wash baskets full. That one hopefully separated from the clean clothes from the dirty, and they're not all mixed up. So
Yeah.
you know that's quite. But can I go back to revert back when you're saying you're spacey? There's
Yeah.
days I have brain fog days that I feel really spacey. And
Yep.
I think they're talking to me and I want to answer them, but I'm multitasking, trying to fit so much in. I can't
Mhm.
even concentrate. Or I'll walk into a room to get something and then I'll be standing there. And what was I in here for? I know it's important. And
I
I
do
have to
that all
go
the time.
back to where I started from and hopefully it comes back to me.
Yeah.
And it's a victim because our lives are too busy and
Yeah.
we're multitasking. And as a parent, it's even worse.
Oh, it's so much worse as a parent. A lot of that is also, you know, working memory and processing and everything is you and I are pretty good at backtracking in conversations and in housework because my partner's ADHD and attentive and he's terrible. He's spacey but without our anxiety. And I think our anxiety can sometimes be helpful because we get stressed about forgetting and so we'll work really hard cognitively, so we're really good at backpedaling and seeing where we are. You know, we'll go back to the kitchen. Oh, I was putting some forks away and then I noticed that the scissors weren't there, so I went to the laundry to get the scissors, but by the time you get to the laundry you forgot you were getting the scissors.
That happens to me a lot, and I find when I have got too much going on with my life, that's when it's at its worst.
Yep.
And I just think, take some deep breaths, slow down, and just do one thing at a time because obviously I'm taking on too much, and I have to do that self
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, but also I think that's just the way our minds are. We just constantly have so much going on in our head at once that it can be really hard to have enough room to concentrate and be present.
But it can be exhausting. Sometimes I wish I could just totally focus on one thing
Oh, yeah.
and not worry about the rest of the worries. But
Oh, but you do, don't you? Like, when you do your sewing and
yeah, well,
stuff, you're
that's a
just
form
in
of
the moment.
meditation for me because I might listen to an
Yeah.
audio book while I'm sewing and I just zone out and I'm not worrying about all the other things in my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. Same.
I
I
love
do
that.
too. Okay, next question, because we are totally going way too slow.
Okay, what's the next question?
Have you ever been thought of as selfish because you don't write thank you notes or send birthday cards?
Yeah, I don't know whether they think I'm selfish. Well, I'm very lucky because my husband and his father is very good at admin. He
He is.
often, whenever it comes up on Facebook or anything that it's a mutual friend's birthday, he always sends them the birthday wishes on my behalf. And I'm
Yeah.
just so grateful for that because I can't remember. And I think after I've had dinner with them or they've had us over for dinner, I tell them at the time how thankful I am thinking, oh, there's no way I'll remember to send them a thank you card or anything. So they just have to accept me the way I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember growing up before social media, Dad used to send out the annual Christmas newsletter where he'd put photos of us of the year and write information about what we were up to and sending love to all of our friends and family. There's no way I'd ever be able to do that.
You know what? He used to chase me around for 2 weeks, getting me to put my one paragraph about my life spiel on the computer and remind me every day. And it took me about 2 weeks to sit down and write a paragraph or to proofread that newsletter of his, because executive function, I just couldn't cope.
Hey, Mum, how many years behind are you at the photo albums?
Only 8 years now. But hey, I did 30 years of brilliant
I
photo
know,
albums.
I'm
more organised, but I can,
adorable.
because I've done 30 years of having everything organised in beautiful albums. I
Yeah.
never want to do it again. So what do I do with the last 8 years worth? And lucky, everything's electronic anyway.
Exactly. No need.
Yeah, I've done that chapter in my life.
Yeah.
It's over. So I might throw some of the memorabilia out.
I did my thank you cards for my wedding, and I think I wrote maybe half of them and sent them out relatively quickly, and then the rest of them I sort of sent out over the next 6 to 12 months, and I'm pretty sure there's a few that never got sent out, so sorry to all my loved ones that didn't get a thank you note. And then for my son's birth, I did like announcement cards, which was so fun to make, and I literally didn't give my brother his until my son was over 1 year old. And he lives near me and visits frequently. And every single time I would forget to give him this bloody card.
I know, I'm exactly the same. But hey, if friends accept you with who you are and they don't have that expectation, I think your true friends just love you the way you are.
Yeah.
And anybody else, don't worry about them.
100%. Totally agree. Okay, so do you shut down in the middle of the day feeling assaulted? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, assaulted. I think could have been worded a bit differently.
Yeah, I
to
know.
that. But what about feeling exhausted?
Yeah, that's better.
It's like I say I've been doing too much, and I get to the mid-afternoon and I feel like I've hit the wall. And like just before this, I was doing that before, and I had to go and have a half an hour's sleep because I was wrecked.
Yeah, same. And especially if you have a really hectic morning and you're just go, and take 1 minute to rest and it just all hits you.
Yeah, and if you've been up since 5:30, 6 a.m. and you've packed too much in, I took what I call a power nap, my first one in months, but I woke up feeling refreshed. So I was...
That's good.
Yeah.
Self-care is so important.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you clueless as to how others manage to lead consistent, regular lives?
Oh, yes. I think I missed all that genetic material, but I am who I am.
Yeah, but we're exciting. We live roller coasters, don't we, Mum?
Oh, yeah, and very exciting, spontaneous lives of adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah, lives of adventure.
I don't know if I'd call myself spontaneous, but sure.
Yeah, no, never a dull moment. And rather than, I think the worst possible job was doing the same thing every day, something boring, like working with yourself and not communicating, like the role, I could never be an accountant or something, and just...
But at the same time, I feel almost torn because a lot of people would see that as more like maybe something that would fit the autistic stereotype.
Because it's consistent and what's the word? Repetitive. And some people really need that, where I need variety in all the jobs I've done.
Yeah, which is why, it's important to note you and I are very much both autistic and ADHD, but that trait for you especially outweighs the autistic side, right?
And I just thought of it then to tell your listeners too, please forgive me if I sort of pick on something that you, like if you're an accountant or anything, because I don't mean any harm, but being neurodivergent, I actually put my foot in my mouth quite a lot and say things, but don't mean any harm by them. And I've always been like that. And so please don't take me the wrong way.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, Mum, and you shouldn't have to say it, but I think, it's something that I definitely feel as well, is that and this is what I almost didn't start this podcast because I was so nervous that people would take what I said the wrong way. And I always have really good intentions.
Me too.
I always come from a really good place, but
Non-judgmental,
sometimes,
accepting, very,
yeah,
very well intentioned, don't you? But sometimes what comes out of your mouth, you
yeah,
don't mean people to take you to the wrong way, and you mean no
no,
harm by that. And I think that's just
absolutely,
who we are. We just sort of let it all out
yeah,
there, and
yeah.
that's
And my autistic cousin is an accountant, and she is brilliant at it, and she does not have ADHD, so it is
exactly.
like
And she loves
perfect for
that.
her.
She loves that balance in her life. But I just need variety, I suppose, and to stay on always that steep learning curve where I'm getting lots of stimulation and learning new stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's why ADHDers do well in roles like emergency and paramedics and
Because
such,
you
because
never know what's going to come through the door, and you've always got to
you're
be
living on
ready.
such a high of dopamine hits, right?
Yeah, and you're learning from every outcome, like, all that
Mm,
experience. And I do love
yeah.
working in
Never a dull
emergency.
moment. You do. You
I've
do,
worked
don't
in
you?
about 20 emergency departments around Australia.
Yes, yes.
No, I love it. I love
Um,
it. I love it.
she does. Yeah. No, agreed. And at the same time, I was going to say I'm probably a little bit less into the spontaneity than you are. And I really I don't like repetitive, dull stuff, but I do like routine and consistency and sameness.
Mm,
And yet, I really struggle to achieve that, which is kind of, I guess, the more executive function side of things.
exactly.
So I'm always living in a state of wanting one side or the other and not being able to be consistent about either.
And working out what is the right thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a lifelong journey working out what's
yeah,
best for your personality and needs. Yeah.
absolutely. Do you feel as if life is out of control and that it's impossible to meet
A
demands?
lot of the time, yes. But is that my
Same.
anxiety? Is that your anxiety? Or is
No,
that just what
I don't think
is that
so.
just the responsibility that we have in our lives, or are we a victim of our own choices of what we do with our time?
No, I again, I think I feel like and this just kind of shows like the ableism that still trolls internally away at us, right? Is that I don't actually think that it's any of those things. I think that, I mean, I definitely relate to being demand avoidant. If anyone's heard of pathological demand avoidance, PDA, which is a terrible term, but because we don't like, tasks that require that like less exciting mental loads, such as paperwork, life admin, that sort of thing, I think we can easily get sucked into living a life that's quite engaging and energetic and doing stuff that really, really fills our bucket and makes us really passionate, and then sort of to the expense of leaving some of those demands aside. So you're sort of always chasing your tail at wanting to do the bare minimum of the demands that you need to do to function while also not really actually doing them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think it's anxiety or anything. I just think that's how our brain works, and I'm getting to an age now and also having the joys of the neurodivergent community helping me to understand myself and accept myself along with my loved ones and therapists and everything, is that now I'm just like, well, that's how I am. So I'm not too upset about it, except for when it gets to the point where I really am behind and maybe, have overdue bills and
Mm.
struggling with all that stuff. But if I'm at a point where I'm still struggling and I'm still fine, then it's not a big deal.
When it becomes overwhelming, that bit gets dangerous, I think. And that's when you've got to pull back and say, well, what are my priorities? What can I let go? And what really has to be done by that time and space, a deadline.
Yeah, and that's usually a trigger for us, "Hey, mum," where we're like, "Okay, we really need to shift our attention." It's almost like, "Okay, we've avoided it as long as we can. Someone help."
And that's why it's lovely to lean on your loved one and run it past them to get their perspective, because that they make it all
Yeah,
seem you can do this, you can do this. Yeah.
yeah, especially when you're married to dad who is as in your husband, who is very good at all of that stuff, whereas my husband is just as demand avoidant as me, so our life is a little bit more chaos.
Yeah, but sometimes you appear more chilled out. You've got the ability to sit and relax and slow down a bit and sit on the couch and
Mm,
self nurture and that. And I envy that sometimes because I run
yeah.
around in circles. I wish I could do that more.
That's true. I've had to learn that with my, car accident and chronic pain and
Mm.
health condition.
And over the last few weeks, the most relaxed I've been is when I had COVID and had to stay home for a week. And I sat
What
on
does
the
that
couch
say about your life?
but I sat on the couch and I read 5 books, and it was the most relaxing week of my life this year. Lucky I wasn't very sick with it. But I think,
Yeah,
why
true.
can't I just stay home more and just chill out?
Because FOMO, Mum.
But
Mum's just got endless ideas of stuff to do,
oh
don't you?
yeah, but I'm a
Yeah.
creative person, and I
You
have to
are,
have
and
to
you're a
live
giving
live till I'm
person.
200 or 300 to finish all my projects.
Yeah, well, I totally back that goal, so please do.
I hope they bring something in for eternal life, because I'll need a dose of that. Next question.
Okay, we've been over an hour and we're barely halfway through the ADHD quiz.
All right, we'll pick out a couple of fun ones. Just
Okay.
finish on, pick out the ones that
Okay.
you think
I
we've got
think
some good
you're gonna have to
material.
come on the podcast again, Mum, so we can do the autism test.
Oh, good. I look for that one. Yep, I'll be on again
Yeah, 'cause
anytime.
we've barely
As long as your listeners are happy to have me come on again as a guest, I would love
Oh,
to.
I'm sure they will. I would, because we've, as neurodivergent minds do, we've gotten distracted. So we're fast forwarding a couple questions because we're barely halfway through. Do you hesitate to have people over to your house because you're ashamed of the mess?
Not really, because luckily I've got your father, and we run around and do the massive cleanup before people come. But
Yeah.
there has been periods in my life when he's been away, and it's just too overwhelming to have people over.
Yeah. And I think, I think dad's the key there, and you, but you both, because you can pick up the chaos and fix the mess, you're less, feel like you don't have that ashamed of the mess aspect, because you know that with a bit of elbow grease, the two of you can transform your
But if
house.
I had physical disabilities like you sometimes
Yeah.
can't spend 2 hours running around and making it spotless, because you don't have that ability.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Whereas I can pull the energy together to do that.
Yeah.
Plus, I've got a husband who's highly organised and likes things neat, so he will jump in and do half the load.
Yeah, exactly. So I have friends over, but not often, and the only people I'll ever allow in my house have to be people that I truly love. So my closest friends and family that I'm not embarrassed to have a mess in front of, because 9 times out of 10 my house will have some element of chaos and mess. And luckily I have beautiful friends and family that don't mind, but if I didn't have that, then I would probably never allow anyone in my house, because it is a mess. And, my ADHD and attentive husband is not a fan of cleaning or tidying more so than me. And unfortunately for him, I'm so pedantic about where things go, and I'm not a big fan of him touching my stuff, that even when he tries to help, a lot of the times it just stresses me out.
And it's hard, isn't it, for you when a cleaner does come to clean, because you
Yeah.
have to sort of move your stuff out of the way for them to be able to clean. So that's stressful as well.
Yeah, I've always got to do like a solid hour of tidying before the cleaner comes, to get stuff off the floor and clear the surfaces so she can wipe it down. And I mean, I'm so grateful to have a cleaner, and the NDIS is so helpful in supporting my executive function needs and even my energy deficits.
But I think also, as having a baby and the toys everywhere and chaos, that it's quite normal, because they got to find
Oh, I
to be.
agree. I think everyone
Yeah,
experiences
because if
that.
you don't put your stuff out of the way, they don't find a piece of place that they can mop on the floor, because you've got toys and that. So I think that's quite, you'll go through different phases in your life, and that'll become easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this one's an interesting one, because there is a lot of overlap in emotional regulation for ADHDers and autistic peeps. Do requests for one more thing at the end of the day put you over the top emotionally? I mean, this is a weird question, but my interpretation of it is that if you have such a chaotic day and, you've spent all your spoons, love spoon theory, and then someone comes up to you, like for me, Mum, it would be maybe my husband says, can you, I don't know, clean the dishes, or can you go get food, or something like that, and it's just enough to tip me over the edge and I'm just done. I'm like, no, I can't do anything else. I'm so spent. I don't think this happens to you that much, because
No, it does, because I get very cranky.
yeah.
And then the father will say, "Well, don't take it out on me, or don't snap at me. I didn't realise."
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
right.
then sort of the hackles come out, like it was that's the
Yes.
last straw. You push me over the edge, and yeah,
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because I'm similar, and you almost don't know that you've hit that point until you're acting like that and you're getting that response and you're like, oh, something's going on. And what I'm saying by this is I don't find it very easy to know when I've hit my emotional limit.
No, me neither. And wouldn't it be lovely if you could just walk in and go to your room and have a quiet 5 minutes, get your head together before you have to face another person in case you
Yeah.
are pushed to that breaking point. We don't realize it, do we?
No, we don't. And I remember one day Dad picked me up towards the end of primary school and he said, how was your day? What did you learn? And I just started to cry. Because I was like, I can't answer that. I'm
so exhausted from getting through the day.
Yeah. And he was like, whoa, sorry.
Hey, what about when you broke your foot in a running race and your father comes and picks you up because I was at work. He takes you back to his office, and because he thinks, oh well, now and then you overexpress yourself, you'll be fine. It's just you've just got a bit of a sore foot, and I come to pick you up after that, and I take one look and say, that's broken. And why didn't you take it to hospital to get it checked or ring me earlier?
Yep.
Because he said, well, I just thought her reaction is normal.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, and then you needed plaster for 6 weeks.
I did. And that's also another good point you raised, because I have got a hypersensitivity to pain, and it's caused me so many issues in life, especially with the health system. And even with my own father, who loves me but thinks I'm a drama queen.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but the other thing is, that the pain you would have had in your broken foot would be the same reaction if you'd cut your finger open because of your sensitivity to pain. So he thought, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Didn't even put an ice pack on it.
I know.
Just sat you in their office and probably gave you a colouring in book.
Yeah, I was not a very happy camper that day.
But I realised, only because I know what to look for. But you were so...
But you also were always much more accepting of my pain. You were one of the only people I've ever come across who never invalidated my pain. If anything, you were the opposite. You were like, oh my gosh, I'm worried about any little thing. Which is really good, I think, because, there's a lot of instances. Like, remember when I had appendicitis and they couldn't see the appendix on the ultrasound, and they didn't believe that I actually had appendicitis because my symptoms didn't meet their criteria perfectly.
Exactly.
And they were sending us home, and then something happened, I can't remember, and we ended up staying, even though...
Yeah, because I said she mightn't show it, like she's in so much pain. I know there's something wrong there. Just keep looking. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were so dismissive of it, and eventually they kind of, I think, just got sick of us and thought, well, we'll just go in anyway.
And have a look through the keyhole.
Maybe it's gallstones or something. Yeah, and anyway, it was about to burst.
Yeah.
My appendix was about to rupture, and luckily they did. But, not many people have mothers who know medical stuff. Like, it was really helpful that you understood my hypersensitivity, but also you understood the medical system and could advocate for me, because I think we would have been in a lot of trouble if you couldn't.
Exactly. But then, your cousin that's also neurodivergent, she's so stoic, she suppresses a lot of her pain, and she nearly bled to death because the hospital didn't believe she had that much pain and sent her home with internal bleeding.
Yeah, she did. So there's issues with both not understanding hypo or hypersensitivity to pain, which is very, very common in autism.
Yeah, I think she's hyposensitive and you were hypersensitive to pain.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can see two completely different. Summarised it for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's definitely issues with both. So where were we? So this question's good. Do you feel like you are passing for normal, but you are really an imposter?
Oh my God, that's the story of my life. From a little girl, that is the way people think I'm just run around and I'm part of the normal every day, but I feel like I was an alien a lot of the time. Like, do you really fit any specific friendship groups, or you to flutter around and be friends with everybody, but feel it's all, and I'm putting it on artificially. I've never truly fit in with the normal crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's imposter syndrome 101, and I can completely relate as well. And also being a bit of a chameleon as well. You act different around different friends.
Yeah, you can adapt to, even your body language and the way you mirror their reactions. I'm sitting there and, someone's got their hands on their hip and the other on the chin, and I find I'm mirroring that reaction and subconsciously just to fit in with them.
And sometimes it's even conscious. You're sort of so aware
Yeah,
and you just really want them to accept you. So you meet them at their level, use their language, their body language.
exactly.
You'll know what mold to fit to pass to be accepted by them. But the problem is that I feel like it's common for us to feel like we don't know who we truly are because we spend all our time trying to please others and trying to be what others want us to be and expect us to be, that we sort of lose who we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm way too much of a people pleaser
Yeah,
instead of
same.
focus on I wish I was stronger to say no, this is what I want to do with this time because I need to achieve this instead of
Yeah.
doing everything for everybody else. I still am learning that lesson.
I don't think it's a strength thing. I think it's a survival tactic, really, because you found, like me, over your life that anytime you have expressed your needs or set your own boundaries, they've been rejected and
Exactly.
denied by others. It's safety for
But on
us.
the other flip of the coin there, being a chameleon, I really think is a gift in a way, but also I think it makes you a better
Yeah.
communicator because you can also then relate and get down to the level of any age group with any backgrounds and put yourself in their shoes. And not many people have got the ability to do that. And, like mirror back what they're saying, use their language, use their body language. I just think it can also be a gift.
Yeah, that's fair. That's interesting. I think you're right in a way because, and I also think that's showing, how empathetic you are and how you care deeply for how others experience the world. And that's, myth busted because a lot of people think that autistic people don't have empathy, but actually I think it's quite the opposite, especially for women, is that we're so empathetic that sometimes it really, really affects us. We can kind of experience the feelings of others and we don't know how to switch off to
I
that.
think we experience their emotions a lot stronger than other people, like their pain, their
Yeah.
in and their fear. The
Yeah.
empathy, it sometimes bowls us over because of what we're sensing from other people.
Yeah, exactly. That's spot on. And that can be really draining. And we've got to protect ourselves because you can't go out into the world and just be switched off to everyone. You're sensing everything at once and it can be really overwhelming. And sometimes you're not even that aware of it at the
But
time.
it can be exhausting from a patient dying and you can't help but crying your eyes out with the
Yeah.
family to feeling their pain and crying and it's just it can be draining.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it makes you a better nurse as well. Like, I think I've personally always loved the nurses that showed me that they felt empathy for me and didn't just sort of see me suffering.
And dismiss any of your feelings or
Yeah,
fear.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, they didn't necessarily have to know exactly what I was feeling, but just to let my feelings exist and validate them through that compassion lens is just, I think it's so important in the caring
It
profession.
is. It is.
Yeah. Okay, so we've barely done all the questions of the attitude test for the ADHD. I think we might call it a day, and maybe we can get you back on the show to do the autistic test soon, hey?
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll see what listeners want. I'm keen to go through it. And I think obviously we've talked about so many more things than just what the questions asked.
Mm, mm.
And hopefully you find them helpful. And again, I reiterate that this is our experience and we don't want to invalidate anyone or upset anyone and we don't speak for the whole community and I'm not a medical professional, but mum is, but she's not a medical professional in this field. So go see a doctor.
No, I agree. And we're just doing it from our own personal experience and talking as a
Yeah.
mother and daughter
Yeah.
that are 2,500 kilometres apart.
Yeah, we are. And also, I remember when I was first diagnosed and telling you about this stuff, is the things that helped you and I most was hearing the stories of other autistic and ADHD women and truly being able to identify with that because the diagnostic criteria is one, highly deficit based, and two, very much focused on a male presentation of both of those conditions. And so, I mean, my goal in putting our story out there is just to make people feel seen and maybe you relate to some of what we've experienced and maybe you don't, but hopefully it just gives you a better picture of what it is like to be an autistic ADHDer. Yeah.
Yep, that was really enjoyable. And yeah, thank you for including me and best wishes for all your listeners. And hopefully I'm back on in the future.
Oh, I would definitely love to have you. Mum and I could talk all day. Thank you for being on the show,
And
Mum.
thank you, Annie. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm so proud to be your mum.
Oh, I love you. That's so sweet. I think you did very well for your first podcast interview.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Well, that's it. Another episode done and dusted. I hope you enjoyed this very raw, authentic chat between mother and daughter, and let me know if you want me to get her back to do some more. Once again, we didn't have time for a listener question, which seems to be a trend. So I'm thinking about doing a mini episode each week just with a listener question. If you're interested in that, let us know on the socials and we'll see what we can do. If you haven't noticed, I've got a slight cold and a sniffly nose. Please forgive. And our next episode is talking to a wonderful neurodivergent woman who is a principal neurodiversity consultant. And we'll be talking all about employment, recruitment, leadership, and more. So stay tuned. Over and out.